Westminster. It's the 12th of December, and I've got here with me Professor Simon Carley, wonderful old friend. We first met, didn't we?
I think we did, yeah, back in
Back
2013.
in 2013, yeah.
So yeah, we're originals, mate.
Absolutely. It's a real pleasure to see you again, and it's been a pleasure following you on Twitter.
Well, likewise. I mean, we do quite a lot of chat over the airways, don't
Oh,
we?
absolutely. So what I thought I'd talk to you about is one of the reasons why we first met, which is free open access medical education, otherwise known as FOMED.
Okay, so there's a bit of a legend that goes around this, of course, which many people will have heard. But essentially, the way I think about it is that across the country now, across the world, there are people doing fantastic education activities. They're brilliant. They're just amazing. But because of the nature of geography and time, they're not able to share them with other people. So you might spend ages doing a preparation for a brilliant lecture, 5 people turn up. And that's really frustrating. FOMED is essentially a group of people, a movement, a culture, a cult, if for some people want to call it, I don't care, who say, well, I've put all this work in, do you know what? I'm just going to make it free and available on the web and anybody can use it. That to me is the core of FOMED. It's maybe split out into other things as well, but for me, that's what it's about. And that's what we've done at St Edmunds. We set up the blog in 2012, the podcast in 2013, and we just said we've got a good educational group in Manchester, or Virchester as we call it online, and we're just going to share what we do. And it's kind of gone from there.
And so tell us a little bit about St Edmunds now. So about how many hits do you get every day, every week, every month?
So we see around about 50,000 people a month.
Wow.
Which is, well, we see about...
Crazy.
Well, it's not crazy. I mean,
It is.
Well, it's 50,000 people. It might be my mum doing it 49,000 times. I don't know. Actually, we do know. We have a worldwide coverage. We're not big in North Korea. Sorry about that, North Koreans.
Yeah.
And we're predominantly in the English-speaking world, but we can track the data. And that's one of the beauties, actually, of doing online learning, is the amount of data that you can get back on who's looking, how long they look for, whether they look at other pages, where are they from, when are they looking. You can delve into that information and get a feel for whether this is worth it. Because what sustains the team, and we're quite a big team now, is the fact that we think we're helping and people are interested in the product.
So that's amazing. And I think it's also worth mentioning to the audience that St Edmunds deserves massive kudos. In the world of FOMED, most of it is American and Australian. Let's call it as it is. There's a huge, you mentioned FOMED, the first thing everybody thinks about is Scott Weingart and MCRIT, because he's massive and he's been doing it for a long time. And so in England, for you guys to be up there on the big stage or the big hitters of FOMED is just incredibly impressive, and I deserve massive kudos for that.
Oh, thanks, mate. But I mean, we're not in the top tier. We're in the sort of the middle tier, and we're happy to be there. I think there's lots of reasons why we started. I'm just trying to think back now. That your point about the UK is important, because Cliff Reed, who's also well known in the FOMED community, one of the reasons we started this was a comment that he put out. I can't remember whether it was on social media or whether it was face to face, and he said he just wished that there was somebody in the UK who was advocating for being a critical care, pre-hospital, emergency physician, interested in resuscitation, advocating this as a great thing to do, as a great job, as a great career, as really interesting, as constantly developing, as being incredibly challenging but also incredibly rewarding. And we felt there was a place in the world for us to act as the force of positivity against a lot of negative stuff which is out there, and a lot of that negative stuff needs to be said, high rates of burnout, difficulty, people struggling to manage lives and all that kind of stuff. But there needs to be the counterbalance there as well. And we've always tried, not always successfully, but we've always tried to take a very positive aspect of what we do and to be the balance. And to show people the positives of the work that we do, the work that you do, the work that people at a conference like this do.
That's brilliant. So tell us a bit more about St Edmunds. How many people have you got? You've got quite a few kind of regular contributors and some guest contributors.
Yeah, so we've got two editors-in-chief, myself and Rick Bodie, Professor of Emergency Medicine in Manchester. We've got about 12 core contributors, and they ebb and flow. We've designed the system so you can come into it and come out of it, because obviously if you're getting married, or you want to go on a big holiday, or unfortunately you become unwell, you need to take time out. And so for sustainability, we like a group of people to come together. And then we do periodically invite people to come on who've got a special interest or a topic which we want to support them in getting the message out there. So I suppose there's a core really of about 12 to 14 of us, mostly emergency physicians, but also some psychologists like Liz Crow, some surgeons like Ross Fisher, and a number of us are dual ICU EM trained as well. So, and of course Natalie does pre-hospital care. So it's that kind of interface of those people who work with really sick or complicated patients, and it's a really good team, very supportive, and an awful lot of back chat goes on. I'm sure it's the same for you. A lot of back chat goes on Twitter, and supporting each other academically, but also socially and psychologically.
And would I be correct in saying that some of the work that you did in St Edmunds essentially led to the RC, the Royal College of Emergency Medicine FOMED movement being formed?
Oh gosh, now that's a political hot potato. So not entirely. I suppose we blazed the trail for FOMED in emergency medicine. The college then put together some strategies to develop online learning, but they were more on an old traditional model of paid access, and we advocated very hard that the college should be doing an open access, and that was taken on by the Archem Learning Group, particularly led by people like Simon Lang, who now runs the resus room, and a whole bunch of other people at two degrees, people like Nikki Abela, and just wonderful people who've taken it on for the college. And the college has now adopted very much a FOMED type policy, open access, and we're very happy to support that. We think they're doing a fantastic job, and we work very synergistically with them, and we're very happy to promote their content, and likewise.
Brilliant. So, based on your statistics, what has been your top post? What post repeatedly draws people back in again and again?
Okay, I should know that. So I'll highlight a couple of the ones which do very well. There's one which Natalie did some time ago, which was on assessing children with petechial rashes, particularly the well child with a petechial rash. Because if you work in paediatric emergency medicine, which is one of the things I do, if you come in with a petechial rash, you risk being stabbed multiple times and given antibiotics and fluids, and actually, some of these kids you actually have to chase around the waiting room to actually hold them down. And you're thinking, this is crazy. So she's done an evidence-based review around that kind of management. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. The stuff which seems to do very well is when we talk about clinical topics. People like talking about clinical topics, and in particular, they like talking about those topics where there is uncertainty. So if you want to go and look at a topic about how do I treat a obvious ST elevation MI, that's not really our bag. Go and look in a textbook and go and look at your local guidelines is easy. The areas where we get interest are where we talk about people who've got, so take that one, ECG changes but with very subtle signs, or where we talk about the difficult, complex situations, or where we talk about this area which I describe as the philosophy of emergency medicine. So the classic one I give as an example is a major burns patient who comes into your ED. They've got 90% plus burns, they've got an airway issue, they maybe have some comorbidities, they're clearly going to need an anaesthetic and an ICU stay, and you and I know that they're probably not going to survive. And we could talk about the management of burns, and we could talk about airway management and all that kind of stuff, and that would be very interesting. But what we talk about on the podcast are things like, what do you say to that patient?
I think I remember that post.
It's very emotive to me. And what do you say to their partner? And what do you say to their 14-year-old child?
Yes, I remember that.
And the reason why we have that conversation, the reason why you remember it, is those are the issues that keep you and me awake at night. Yeah. It's not the choice of induction agent. People might think from Twitter that we sort of go to sleep going, oh my God, I should use ketamine all the time. That's not what keeps us awake. It's the human, the philosophy, the uncertainty, the complexity, the probability of the cases that we see. And I think there is a place for us to talk about that with an expert group in an open forum, which in social media you can then get people to talk back to you about. So we can get, it's not just me saying I think we should do this, but we can start a conversation and realize that sometimes there isn't a perfect answer, but at least we've thought about it before the day when something like that happens.
So I think I'll just ask a couple more things. So have there been any drawbacks from doing St Edmunds?
Overall, positive, negative balance? No, not at all. Are there some negatives? Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and we only do this as a hobby. It's been very expensive. We've basically funded up until now, certainly.
So you've got no recognition, no professional recognition from university or from the Royal College or anything like that?
Not really, no. I suppose I did my PhD. I did a PhD last year.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
So I did my PhD in technology enhanced learning in emergency medicine. I like to say that's my third postgraduate degree. I really should stop doing this. It's not good for my health. And that was really good fun to do. So I suppose we got that out of it. I think we're all narcissists in medicine. And people say, oh, people in FOMED, they're all narcissists. Well, yeah, I guess we are. I'm quite happy to own that. I like speaking to people. I like meeting people. We've had the opportunity to go around the world and speak at conferences like this. All of those positives have come out of this. And so it's been fantastic from that point of view. And negatives, time, money, sometimes we've had controversial posts which have come out, and that's been difficult to deal with. We've had hate mail, we've had abuse, we've had...
Oh, gosh, that's awful.
Oh, we've had some there are some really unpleasant trolls out there who are, ignored.
Because it ties in quite nicely to the big debate that quite a few of us in the FOMED community are having about the sustainability of FOMED and how... Because, it's getting... look at this. This was a dream. Jonathan and I talked about this idea of live streaming. When did we think we started talking about it? A couple of years ago? And we've done it.
Yeah.
But, at a significant time cost, a significant cost. How do we do this? And as it gets bigger and bigger, how do we keep it sustainable? That's a challenge that we're all wondering about right now. And I don't know if you guys are asking yourselves the same question.
We have done. You can, if you wish, now produce a donation. You can subscribe to emergency medicine. You can subscribe to St Edmunds on a voluntary basis, and that may help with things like the bandwidth costs. Because as we've got bigger, the costs have got proportionally larger. The way I look at it is, I am an emergency physician in the UK. I am very well paid for what I do. I have the time. I have the money to support it, and if I have to pay for all of this out of my own pocket, that's absolutely fine. We ran a conference in Manchester this year, the St Edmunds Live conference. We can use any profits from that, which were not particularly large, but they may pay for a couple of months worth of bandwidth and stuff like that. So there are things that we can do to sort of support it. The bottom line is it's not a money-making game, but we would like... the sustainability would be helpful. And it's interesting, success, unfortunately, leads to additional expense. The sustainability in terms of time and effort, I think, is about keeping people motivated, interested, and valued. People will do a lot for value. We do think that we're doing a good thing. I've got lots of anecdotal and, to some extent, some data evidence that what we do makes a difference. And a warm glow and feeling narcissistically happy about life, sorry about using the word again, is not a bad thing.
And I think you're completely right. I got into FOMED from Ollie Flower and the Intensive Care Network, and I actually listened to a podcast that completely changed the management of a patient that I saw, and I picked up a cervical spine injury that had basically been missed because of something I heard. And it was really incredible, and a lot of the stuff I've learned on focus. But you're basically preaching to the converted, and the last person to start to neg on FOMED or anything like that.
I think it has its problems. We have to be sure that what we put out is of reasonable quality. We have an editorial policy. There are only 2 people allowed to press go on any of our podcasts. They're all reviewed by colleagues. We're very keen and very quick to correct any mistakes that might happen through typo or anything like that. And again, we can do that through social media very quickly. We recognise that we represent both ourselves, the organisations that we work for, and also our specialty. And that's important that we do the right thing. And there is a degree of responsibility in this, and
very much.
I think the larger organisations, at the beginning, not now, but at the beginning, I think people like colleges, not just in emergency medicine, were very worried about people who were not in the system having a voice. I think we've moved beyond that now, and although there are a few people who sort of criticise it, I think actually if you look at the way that a lot of FOMED content is produced and then critiqued online, and the ability to post-publication review, it's actually arguably more powerful, more robust and safer than what happens in a lot of journals. And I speak to that as a journal editor.
Yeah, I agree. I speak to that as a journal editor as well. So just randomly, the ICS actually has a FOMED page. And we collate lots of FOMED resources for our audience. So would you be happy for St Edmunds to be part of that as well?
Yeah, sure.
I think so, yeah. So I'll try and make sure that we put you up on the page.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And likewise, I think we have some good links to direct people. And I think it's been lovely at this meeting to see the interplay and the crossover between ICM and ED, because actually, you know what? It's the same patients a lot of the time.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Simon.
Oh, thank you for your
It was
time,
a pleasure
and
to
thanks
chat.
for your efforts. Keep it going, man.
All right, will do. Take it easy, man.
Aye.